Hello, scumbags, and happy revenge of the 5th. This is the day when we celebrate everything that is mean and dark and nasty, because what could be better than unlimited power, right, James? I mean, what could be better?
Look, I love the dark side. Nothing is better than unlimited power unless you're the Senate.
Oh, burn. I would say too soon, but it wasn't too soon.
It was not too soon.
We have a little bit of a treat today to talk about, because we have some juicy little theories and info regarding a certain movie called Star Wars Episode 9.
Boycott!
Boycott, it's, you know what, I'm not going. I've heard too many rumors. I have had enough. I'm just going to watch Furious 9 instead and pretend.
Well, look, Furious 9 knows one thing. And that's that it's fast.
Ooh. Fun fact, I've only seen like the first 2 Furious movies ever. And
what?
Yeah, I can't.
You haven't, wait. Side Akbar. You haven't seen the ones with The Rock?
No, I have not seen the ones with The Rock.
Hold on, stay right there. I'm coming over. Look, they're all bad. But The Rock shows up in like number 5 and takes it from here to rockdom.
That's what I want to hear. To
rockdom. Anyway, look, Aaron loves them. I have to go see all of them in theater. The first one The Rock's in, all he does is sweat for 2 hours. Like, he's dripping sweat for 2 hours. We were in the theater. I think it was Brock in the theater was like, why is he sweating so much? Like, it's a visibly uncomfortable how much The Rock is sweating. Anyway, he is not in Episode 9. Sorry, continue.
No, he's not going to be in it that we know of.
That would be so
there have been some whisperings. Oh, imagine. Episode 9, a rampage. There have been some whisperings of what might happen. And we got some theories as well from some of our fans. One of those fans, who's actually one of our supporters on Patreon, Heidi Fedor. She left a comment, and thank you for commenting, Heidi. Thank you for being a fan. Thank you for being a Patreon supporter. All those things are awesome. We love that.
I think she's Heidi a Jedi, so I don't know why we're talking about this today, because she's a Jedi.
That's true, yeah. There's nothing really dark side about what she's doing, but her comment involved the dark side, which I think is very interesting, because what's the conflict going to be in this movie? And you can't have dark side without conflict. Now, Heidi is proposing, because of this news that has come out recently about a supposed character that JJ's auditioning for named Mara, for lack of a better term. She's wondering, Heidi is wondering if this name isn't a red herring, but in a clever way, because, you know, JJ and company, they know us. They know that we will react to that name. Just as if they had, in Force Awakens, if they had codenamed a character Admiral Blue, we would have lost our collective minds, and we would have started making 25 videos discussing who Admiral Blue is. But what we ended up with here was this character description of an older woman codenamed Mara. And what Heidi is thinking is that because Mara Jade was the Emperor's hand, she started off working for Palpatine, and her whole thing was, I'm going to kill Luke, up until, she changed her mind and all that. Heidi is thinking maybe this Mara character, whatever her name ends up being, is in fact a villain, and maybe ends up even being the villain of the movie, who kind of takes Rey under her wing and helps Rey to sabotage Kylo, but in a sort of dark and twisted way. Heidi makes the example here of Hux. Hux saying that, he knows Rey couldn't have taken out Snoke all by herself and all the guards. Like, that's way too much. So he probably knows Kylo is involved in killing Snoke, and he wants to usurp that throne. And so maybe he hires this lady, or something happens, but this lady comes into the mix and presents a problem to both Rey and Kylo. But she gives off the appearance as being a friend to both of them. What like before we dive into this, just on the surface level, how does this sound to you? Does it sound too crazy to be in the final chapter of a trilogy, or do you think this could work?
That's I think it could work, but then you say it's the final chapter of a trilogy. You go, well, can it? I think look, a lot of people are like Hux is going to be the next villain, or Kylo is just going to be a straight up villain, or Kylo will get redeemed, then who's the villain? These are all the questions, and they've killed off Snoke halfway through this story. Halfway through the story, the sequel trilogy story, not obviously the entire thing. They've killed off the big bad, or who we presume to be the big bad. There needs to be more with Snoke. Whether he's in it, I don't think so, but whether he's in it or something to do with him, and I think that's a perfect way to fit it in. You could bring this new character in, whoever, Mara Jade, whatever, bring them in through Snoke, and it's essentially, this character is essentially an extension of who Snoke was. So it's a new character, but it's really just Snoke. It's like, yay, well, Rian Johnson did this. I really kind of needed that to finish this off, so let's do that. My feeling is, I have another take on who this character could potentially be, and I don't think I'm right on this one either, but I just want to talk to you about it in a little bit. But yeah, I think, look, it is weird that the last one in the movie would have this, but it would make a lot of sense. The only thing for me is the age is curious. The 45 to 50, I believe it was. That's kind of curious to me. Like, why would it be like specifically this age? Because Snoke was older than that. So, not that has anything to do with it, but I'm just trying to figure why. What is the importance, the relevance, I should say, of that age?
Yeah, you're right. The specific age that's listed in this description, it gives us a lot of yeses and nos to different theories. She's old enough to be a leader in the First Order, if that is in fact what she is. Like if this character was said to be 20 or something like that, I couldn't see her being Snoke's boss, or like I just couldn't see that happening. But the fact that she is 40-ish, let's say 50, tells me that she could be a number of different things in leadership positions. For all we know, she could end up being, just like another Ken Lung kind of character, like another admiral in the Resistance who's like, I like being in the Resistance. But what do you think of the thing Heidi brings up, of that this woman could potentially come to Rey pretending to be a mentor, helping her fight Kylo Ren, but she's plotting with Hux the whole time, and she's just pitting Hux's two big enemies against each other so they can finish each other off, and then she reaps the benefits from that.
Again, that's another idea that I like, but more probably in like the second movie of a trilogy. Mm-hmm. I really like the idea, but we're wrapping this thing up. John Boyega said, we're going to close out the franchise. Like, this is the ending of the 9 films, is the culmination of all 9. Like, bringing that in so late, how long is this movie going to? I suspect this movie is going to be 2.5 tops. 2:15 probably is more realistic. Like, well, it'll be longer than Solo, so probably around 2:30, 2:35, somewhere around that range. I don't think it'll be much longer than any of that. And if there is a time jump, you have to think part of, like, Rey is the character more than anybody that will benefit from a time jump, because all of a sudden she can be like, I know the Force, to I am a master of the Force. And so will she need a mentor character if there is a time jump? Because like I said, I think the time jump is needed. It is needed more than ever. We need to just be like, there's still, the reason it's needed is because there's too much about the characters that have not been revealed to us, that we don't know anything about the characters. So if you time jump it, then all of a sudden everything can just be like, yeah, that crap in the background. But because if you continue right off the bat, it's going to be like, like the characters won't grow, and this is the best way for them to grow. But because of that, why would she need a mentor? Now they could write it in a way where it's someone who's like, I know the answers to, say, your parents, because maybe she's not satisfied with the answer she has towards that, and then it could be a mentor in that respect. Because I said this on last week's podcast when I brought up Scream 3, that I think Rey's parents have to play some sort of factor in Episode 9, and that's not to say that Kylo was lying. I'm not saying that. Even if he was telling the truth, that still has to play, because don't forget, in The Force Awakens, what's it all about? I have to go back to Jakku. My family's coming back for me. I got to get back to Jakku. That is the whole point of it. So even if there were junk traders that sold it for nothing, I think she would still have that yearning to need to go back to Jakku, and I really think we're going back there. And I just went off on this tangent like that.
Well, for all we know, there's more flashbacks in this movie, right? I mean, that hasn't been confirmed or denied.
Do you think Abrams would go that way? Like more flashbacks?
Well, first of all, this is the guy who gave us Lost, so don't forget that. But I feel like there's more to what happened in the temple that we kind of need to be shown. Debris falls on Luke and he's out for the count, and that's all we could glean from his story because that's all he remembers. But Kylo moved on. He went into the temple. He found some folks who were like, yeah, well, screw Skywalker. Let's go with this guy. He seems to have
sorry, but how this is another side Akbar. But the story that we know, Luke turned on Kylo. Kylo brought the house down, escaped, grabbed 12 students, and how they were just like, yeah, sure, we'll follow you, no question. There's got to be something more to that. Because look, let's just say you and I are in this situation, and we have a master, and it's Brock, and he's a terrible master. And Brock one night comes to kill me, because he probably would. And he comes to slay me in my sleep, and I'm like, what the F-ball? And I bring, his house down on him, and I run over to you. I'm like, dude, Brock tried to kill me. Do you want to go join me on the dark side? Like, wouldn't you have questions? Like, why was Brock trying to kill you, aside from the obvious? But there would be questions that you would have, but from what we know, they were just like, yeah, we saw that one coming.
Yeah. So there's so much more. Like, what was Luke's relationship like with those kids then? Did they despise him? Were they sitting around thinking like, hey, first chance we get, we take out old man Skywalker, we pilfer his wallet, and we just rock it off here and we go to a diner somewhere and just pick up girls, man. Like, is that the kind of...
Is it Dex's Diner?
Oh, I hope so.
Me too. Make that movie. By the way, I'm in Endor right now. Check this out. It's all plants. Can you see that?
Oh my.
It's all... This is Aaron's secret garden. It is all... Don't tell her that I revealed it. Anyway, sorry. Endor. Ewoks.
We could see them. Remember when we kept hearing those rumors that we were going to see Endor and Mustafar and Tatooine in Episode 8? And they turned out to be a bold-faced lie, and I cried. I still think that we will see familiar planets in 9, especially because it's supposed to wrap everything up. We kind of need to go back to where it began if we're going to end it. That's kind of it goes without saying now.
So what would that be for you?
For me, it would be Tatooine.
But is that because that's where my head was at. Sorry to interrupt. That's where my head was at. But then really where it all began is Naboo.
Yes. And Naboo is beautiful, and I would love to see Naboo again, especially because the layout of Naboo is so ideal for like a final confrontation, like just amongst the pillars of the palace and all that.
Well, we've got that before.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. And it didn't work out so well for the people involved, if I remember right.
But you know what would be kind of cool is Naboo, end battle on Naboo. So you end it where it all began with a battle, but now it's present day Naboo. So the Empire has now riddled it to that lived-in world of the original trilogy. So we could get this cool. I don't think it'll happen, but we could get like a Naboo that we know as this clean, pristine planet, but because of the Imperial rule has crumbled and rotted away, and we could get that now. And I think that would be totally awesome to see in film, because as an audience, we'd be like, oh man, look what happened to that planet.
That's actually a really good point. I went on a vacation back when I was in high school to Rome.
Lies.
I'm full of it. Post all my lies in the comments below, and if you catch them all, you win a lollipop. But when I was in Rome, I'm walking around and I'm seeing, the old ruins of like, oh, see that pillar over there? That's all that's left of the Temple of Juno. And, there's a guy with like holding like a painting, and he's like, this is what it actually looked like back in the day. So imagine going back to Naboo, and this great conflict takes place there, and you see just like 6 pillars just randomly, and you're like, that was the Queen's palace. That's all that's left. That would. I went there. Very sad.
I went to the actual Queen's palace, in Italy, in Caserta. You obviously did not go there.
No, I'm not as cool.
You I had no idea. I was actually told, "Hey, we're going somewhere." My cousin said it. He lives there. He's like, "We're going somewhere," in Italian. He said that. I didn't know what he said. So yeah, and I got up. Me, him, and my uncles, we went, and I'm walking around like, "Are we?" I was like, "This is so like." I didn't know. Like I said, I had no idea where we were going. I walked. I'm like, I know where we are. Then I went in and I popped in the Phantom Menace DVD behind the scenes just to make sure, and they're like, "Yep." And I was like, "It is. It looks the exact same in person." That's all you can say. But it's very nice. But yeah, I love that idea. Like it's just because look, Tatooine. Look, go back to Tatooine. I'm not saying don't go back to Tatooine, but Tatooine always looks the same. Like it's Tatooine. It is a desert planet. But something like Naboo, Coruscant, something that I think would be very cool to go back to as well. What happened to Coruscant? What does it look like? Imperial City is not like, what is it? And these are all really intriguing factors to me that they could bring aesthetically. Just like like we're going here, and you're like, oh, because in Shattered Empire they went to Naboo and Leia sensed Maul. And look, I don't need that in my life at all. But I just think the idea of going back to a planet that we got in the prequels, but seeing it in the lived-in original trilogy version of Star Wars is something that I think would blow all of fans' minds.
Oh, for sure. And like you mentioned, Coruscant, greatest planet ever made. One of the things that I loved about...
I guess Endor's a moon, so you're lucky on that one.
Yeah, I am lucky. I know. One of the things I loved about what Palpatine did, once he took over, was the Jedi Temple. It's got.
By the way, you know what I loved when Palpatine took over.
All that murder, wasn't that neat?
I'm really into Palps. He was a great leader. The galaxy could really use someone like him again.
Genocide is kind of underrated sometimes.
Send all of your letters to Andrew Fantasia, care of
Brock Smink.
Now we know why he killed me.
This is exactly why. But the Jedi Temple is laid out it's got these 4 pillars that are all evenly sized, and then a central pillar that's really, really big. And the room where the Jedi Council would meet was not in that big central pillar because they didn't want to elevate themselves and create this like ego thing. So they were in one of those other smaller pillars. But when Palpatine took over and made that his Imperial Palace, his throne room was up in that top pillar because of Palpatine. And we see that throne room a few times popping up in the books, but we've never seen it physically, and I think that would be a really cool thing to see in a movie. I'm sure somebody will throw it in a comic eventually, but it's not the same in a comic. I want to see that in a movie, how that looks. Palpatine doesn't have to be there. Obviously, I would not complain if he was, but imagine going to the ruins of Coruscant and, Rey and Finn walk into the ruins of what was once his throne room. And it's still kind of how he left it because nobody wanted to touch it because it's creepy now. But stuff like that could happen, and I would totally be in love. But
it really just depends on what direction they go with the movie, because obviously we thought Tatooine and Endor were going to be in it. Mustafar especially, I thought Mustafar 100% was going to show up because of Vader's castle. We got it in Rogue One. I felt a lot of things that we got in Rogue One, Kyber crystals, Vader's castle, were things that were going to play a part in Last Jedi. But the time frame of the movie didn't allow that stuff to happen. Even if Rian Johnson was like, I wanted to put Mustafar in it, but where would it doesn't fit in your story that he decided to tell. I've seen a lot of people like, well, this is what it should have been. Well, I mean, it is what it is. This is what he decided to do. And in what he decided to do, that stuff doesn't work. It just does not work. So in episode 9, I obviously don't know if any of that stuff's going to fit in, but if the way J.J. Abrams kind of said is like, this is all going to tie together. Coruscant, Tatooine, or Naboo, one of those three, or Mustafar, one of those four, I'll say, 100% has to show up. And because it's J.J. Abrams, I'm going to go Tatooine. Is like that would be Vegas odds would be Tatooine, Mustafar, Coruscant, Naboo, maybe.
I would say Coruscant last because they're afraid of they're afraid of prequel haters being like, "Hey, a building. We don't like buildings."
But the thing is, with Coruscant, the same as Naboo, you give me that post-Imperial reign of it. It could be really, really cool. But you're absolutely right. They think it's got the stench of the prequels, which it's so funny that they tried so hard to rid themselves of the stench of the prequels that now there is this stench of the sequels that they've created for themselves in trying to ignore the prequels. But the movie that gave them the stench is the one that embraced the prequels. So the lesson to be learned with Star Wars is you cannot win. Star Wars fans are the worst. One thing that The Last Jedi taught me was that there's a portion of this world, more than I thought, that were way more similar to Cartman from South Park than I realized, than I wanted to believe. There's a lot of go in the kitchen and make me a pie. There's a lot of that going on. And it's like, it's like they're caricatures. Anyway, that is what The Last Jedi has taught me more than anything, is that the human race has some problems.
One of my... No, you're not wrong. One of my favorite things about Heidi's theory is the idea of Hux going behind Kylo's back, because I really loved their dynamic in The Last Jedi. I thought it was one of my favorite parts of that movie. And coming out of Last Jedi, one of my first thoughts for Episode 9 was, God, if Kylo is in charge now, I can't wait to see what that relationship is like with them at the top of the world, and they're just at each other's throats all the time. And I know a lot of people didn't like that relationship, but I loved it personally.
I'll say, to interject here, sorry. For me, it's not the relationship. It was the way Hux was handled and written. The opening scene with Poe Dameron, the humor I felt is misplaced. First of all, do they have answering machines in space? I don't know. Apparently they do now. But I just like that undermined Hux almost too much, because it's almost like there's no respect for the character. And for any of this stuff to happen now in 9, we need to have some sort of respect for Hux, which Hux is not a great... He's not a great villain in the story. You know, like he's not... There's a reason why he's not the leader of the First Order, is what I'm trying to say. Right. But we need to, as an audience, we need to kind of see that, but also respect him enough to understand that, hey, this guy had the brains to track that ship through hyperspace. Like, he figured that out. But that it's the opening scene more than the rest of the movie where you're like, oh, they downgraded him to Abbott and Costello type of thing.
Yeah, and like, I totally get it if people did not
make me a pie!
Make me a pie. Yeah, I get it. If you weren't a fan of that comedy, I understand. I personally liked it. I don't think it ever went too far for my tastes, but my tastes are all over the map anyway. But you're right. I think that Hux has the potential to be a really cool and memorable villain. He just has to do it. If it happens, it has to be in a backhanded way. Like, for example, Hux is never going to be Sauron, but he could be Gollum. He could surprise us and, do something at the 11th hour that, helps win the day in a sense, but in a very villainous, underhanded way. Like, his rivalry with Kylo might be what dethrones Kylo, and who knows? Because, hell, Kylo's rivalry with Snoke is what dethrones Snoke. So, as George would say, it's like history, it's like poetry.
I love the idea of him like being fulcrum, but not to help the resistance, to help him. Like,
yes,
it's like, hey, you do this, you guys will succeed. But really, I'm going to succeed because I have the upper hand on you now. I love that idea, and I think regardless of how you feel or how he was handled in The Last Jedi, because of The Force Awakens and because of the time jump that can allow us to accept this part of Hux and who he is. Because I think in the books they've really set him up to be conniving in a lot of ways. And
well, yeah, the guy got his own father killed.
Yeah, he's a bad news. Spoiler alert. So we know that, but I would bet you most people don't.
Including Donald Gleason, apparently, because he didn't know his first name was Armitage.
That's another episode of something that we're going to have to do one day, because WTF.
But it's funny that you mentioned that, because there is a thing going around on Reddit right now. And apparently I need to start using Reddit, because some guy on Reddit guessed Westworld Season 2. He guessed what was going to happen. And I was like, wow, that's actually a really good theory. I think that's right. And now apparently there's another thing going around on Reddit. And you mentioned it to me. Why don't you give me the details? Because I haven't seen it firsthand. So
I briefly checked it. I think Heidi actually brought it to my attention, and I checked it out. And so, guys, I guess I should say this. I'm laughing because I don't think it is, but this could potentially be a spoiler for Star Wars Episode 9, Revenge of the Fifth. That's the actual title. So it could be a spoiler, so brace yourselves if you want to hear, if you don't want to hear. But I mean, we are a year and a half out from the release of this film. The odds that somebody knows this information who's not Mike Zero is really kind of weird. So here we go. I'm just joking. Mike Zero's fine. The idea is that, and look, I'm right on this. You've seen videos with me, I think with you, with Josh for sure, talking about how I would love to see Kylo Ren as a supreme leader, and the galaxy embraces him and loves him and thinks he's doing a tremendous job. And this Reddit leak that I believe they said they saw a storyboard or a script, or they delivered McDonald's to J.J. Abrams' trailer. I'm not really sure who this guy is. But it basically says that the Galaxy loves what Kylo is doing, but an undercover agent who, spoiler, it ends up being Hux, just like Heidi's idea there, ends up giving information. They don't know it's Hux, but they give information to the Resistance saying, hey, there's something going on the planet that will show you the truth about the First Order. They go there, they find out that I think they're being enslaved, much like the Empire. They're being enslaved, genocide, all that stuff. So they need to save these people and expose the First Order for who they are. The thing that is really curious, and this goes back to the whole Mara thing at the beginning, the Mara Jade thing, is the characters that they pointed out in this thread were Finn, Rey, I think Poe, and Leia. Leia played a key role in this. So again, I don't buy this at all. 100% don't buy it, especially after the nonsense that we got spun around in episode 8, which is completely fine. I'm fine with not knowing anything. You can tell me a lie and we can talk about the lie for months. And I'm totally cool with that because it's fun and I don't care. And it's Star Wars. It's not real. Sorry, but it's fun. We have to remember that it is fun. And so I'm totally fine with it. But going back to it, it's like, well, if Leia's going to play a role, and you want to recast Leia, her age would be probably over 45 to 50, but you'd probably want to cast someone in that age range to play her. And you're not going to say you're casting for Leia. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're casting for Mara Jade. And maybe that is your code name instead of making up a nonsensical name for Leia. You're just like Mara. You throw it in there, and people are like, we talk about, oh my God, they're bringing it up. And really, they're like, this. You're going to play Leia in 5 scenes. We don't want an actress with any clout because we want people to kind of go in there, and we want them to just be like, oh, okay, I can live with it or whatever. Maybe they've changed their mind and they get an actress to do Leia, and then they still do the CG over. They said they won't do that, but look, it's been a year and a half since she's passed away, since they said that. Maybe things changed. Maybe J.J. Abrams said this. Because we don't know how they're going to handle Leia, and we're going to find out, but it would be really awesome not to find out until we're in that theater watching the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and also it's a water planet. They go to a water planet, which it fits almost too perfectly with the original concept of Jakku, which makes me almost buy it. But anyway, your thoughts on the whole Reddit?
That changes everything, then, if it's a water planet.
But imagine if Jakku was like Venice, though. How they like the original.
Yeah,
planet.
like that artwork. That would have been gorgeous.
So good, and nobody would compare it to Tatooine either.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be the exact same planet. It would still be the same planet, but nobody would compare it because it's not desert. Anyway.
It's interesting that this Reddit person mentions Leia. That's neat. I still take this with a grain of salt. Like, who knows if it's attention.
Oh yeah.
Is what they say. But if this is the case, and there might be a Leia prominent in this script. You're right. They've said, we're not going to do this. Don't worry, we're not going to do that. We're not going to recast or whatever. But we don't know what happened in that writer's room. JJ could have sat there for weeks on end and, came up with draft after draft, and it just wasn't working without her. It's like Buddy Hackett says, and it's a mad, 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 mad world. He says, we figured it 17 different ways, but no matter how many times we figured it, somebody don't like the way we figured it. So now there's only one way to figure it. And maybe that's what he said verbatim to Kathleen. And she's like, are you trying to tell me that we should put Leia back in the movie? And he's like, yes. And
we don't know if they took her out of the movie.
Exactly. Who knows? Like, maybe they tried it with her and they tried it without her, and they picked which one was better.
I brought this up a few times, but never with you. So I want to talk to you. When we did our roundtable a month before The Last Jedi came out, you said you wanted Leia recast because you wanted their plan A going into it. However, since that 7 months ago, whenever we did that, we have been learning that there has never been a plan A, a plan B, a plan C. It has been a plan what's on your mind right now. So knowing that there wasn't a plan necessarily for episode 9, concrete plan for episode 9, what are your feelings on Leia now?
My feelings are pretty much what I just said. Is I think that their best course of action is come up with your idea, your overall idea for the script, and write 2 scripts. Write a script that Leia is in and a script that Leia is not in, and then sit down in a room with all the minds who are important. So Iger, Kennedy, JJ, maybe even put Rian Johnson in that room. But I think most importantly, put Adam Driver in that room. Sit down with all these people and read both of the scripts and address the room and say, okay, if I can only make one of these movies, which one am I making? And obviously, I don't think everybody's going to agree unanimously, but majority, I guess. I mean, and I would definitely look to Adam Driver, especially because he's either going to get the chance to interact with his mother or he's not, and that could really alter the course of his character. So I would put him in that room and make sure he sees both of those scripts and say, which of these can I make if I can only make one?
One of the most disappointing things in The Last Jedi for me personally was the title. No, it was they kept promising us, and Rian Johnson was saying it for months. He's like, the death of Han Solo is going to play a big part. It's going to hover over the whole movie. It's going to tap over the whole movie. Then they cut out the Luke scene. We won't talk about what they cut out because it's freaking weird. But really only at the end of the movie is there any weight to Han Solo's death, and it's really see around kid, that kind of stuff. And I think no matter what happens with Leia, is Leia, and for me, I would have her pass away in between movies, especially if there's a time jump. You've built it in. Radiation from what she suffered in Last Jedi, boom. But the impact of her passing has to play a ginormous toll on Kylo, obviously, on Rey, on Poe. Finn, not so much because he's not a part of that, but on those characters specifically. And I think killing off Leia, let's bring up the Rocky movies. Have you seen the Rocky films?
James,
You're Italian.
Please.
Okay, so Rocky 1, brilliant. Rocky 2, you're like, wow, this is awesome. Then there's 3, 4, 5. 3, 4, 5, and you're like, oof, Rocky 5. But then Rocky Balboa comes. The 6th one, right? The Rocky Balboa. And they kill off Adrian.
Yes.
They kill her off. And I remember watching, I think it was The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. I watched it. Sylvester Stallone was talking about it. He goes, I kept trying to write this movie. And he goes, the only way I can get it to work was by killing her off. And he had to call up, I forget her name now, but the actress, Coppola. Yeah, he had to call her and be like, hey, it's the only way I can get it. She was obviously disappointed, but, whatever, it's movies. And you look at that, and that movie's awesome. Like, that movie is awesome. And Leia, and I'm going to, compare that to Leia. I mean, Leia's more your hands are forced in that direction, but the impact of a huge character like that passing, because Luke, as Luke and Han even, because Han is the father, Ben Solo never really liked him, whatever, so he dies, whatever. But now both your parents are gone, this from Kylo's perspective, and your mother's gone, who you refuse to shoot down, is gone. Then you have Rey, Han's gone, and the whole thing with Han doesn't really work. I still think the Obi-Wan was way more effective with Luke than Han was to Rey, I felt. But Leia, I think there's still this connection with her and Leia. And Poe. There's just so much to be learned from the past. If she passes on, it's not. It would. I think it's so beneficial to all of the characters that really have not had time to grow. It's Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben moment. I keep talking about the new Peter Parker has no Uncle Ben. You got to kill Tony Stark. This is it. This is a moment for them to just be like, okay, because Leia's role ended in Return of the Jedi. Her role ended. She was background in Force Awakens. She's a little bit more at the forefront of Last Jedi, but still background. They knocked her unconscious for half the movie. Now's your chance. She could be so impactful. And then I think I'm speaking too much, but it's even respectful to Carrie Fisher if her passing matches Leia's passing, which grows the franchise into a beautiful blossom. The show blossom.
No, I like that analogy.
This is a blossom, by the way.
That's what a blossom looks like. If you don't think that's what a blossom looks like, send your hate mail to James Rosalie, care of Brocksmead. But you're right. If she's dead that whole movie, if the movie starts off and it's like Princess Leia has passed away, then you're right. A lot of heavy moments have to hinge on that. It can't just be, she's dead, move on. And the Rocky analogy is a great one. And they even took it a step further in Creed, which I loved even more than Rocky Balboa.
Paul.
Where, Polly too. But spoilers for Creed, if you have not seen it.
It's so good. Ryan
Rocky,
Coogler's second best movie.
I still I haven't seen Through Bell Station yet, but I still think it's his first best movie.
That's number one. Number 2 is Creed. Number 3 is...
It was Andrew Fantasia Saves Christmas. But spoilers for Creed, Rocky comes down with he gets cancer, and everybody's telling him, Rocky, why don't you fight it? Go do chemo. And Rocky's response is like, why would I want to fight it? Everybody who I ever loved is dead. I want to just get this over with so I can go be with them again. And that was really powerful stuff. And so imagine if somebody in this movie feels that powerfully about the fact that Leia is gone now, and whether it's Poe, whether it's Kylo or something imagine that affecting somebody on that level and what it could do. So yeah, absolutely. That script that she's not in, that's how you write that script.
Yeah.
I still would subscribe to writing both and just seeing what the people in that room think. But you're right. That's absolutely how you write that script. But this whole Reddit thing about go to this planet because something bad is happening. I'm hoping that that's just one scene. I'm expecting that this movie should be very thick and juicy and full of stuff the way Force Awakens and Last Jedi were. I'm hoping it's not like Return of the Jedi where it's got 2 scenes because it has to wrap up so much with so little time. And I really the more I think about it, the more I believe, and you brought this up yourself in last week's podcast, that it's almost like episode 7 was 2 movies that got split up, and we're yet to see 8 and 9, because so much of what we saw was so condensed, and like so much still has to transpire if you're going to finish that off, that one movie just does not seem like enough to my puny human brain.
Well, it's not going to be 2, but yeah, it's almost like Lucas was a genius for making New Hope episode 4 randomly one day. But then it's also the curse of everything else, because now it's like you kind of wish that there was an episode 8 and 9, and episode 8 is 7.5, because that's really essentially what it is. It's like, and I think, and look, they tried something with it. I think to a lot of people it worked, and to a few people it didn't work, and we can argue on that debate as until the cows come home, and no one's ever going to win it. But it is what it is. It's there. But I think that's happened now. Let's move past that. Time jump the crap out of this. Make everybody a little bit older, a little bit. I'm not saying, make it 100-year time jump. I'm saying, enough time goes by where Poe's a leader, Rey's a Jedi. Finn, I said this on the podcast too, is I as much as I think Rey got the shaft in Last Jedi in terms of growth as a character, Finn used to be a stormtrooper, was conditioned his whole life, brainwashed his whole life, left it because of an incident, but we're guessing there might have been more. He saw more, and then books obviously. But where's his head at? We don't get enough. It's just like, where's Rey? Which I kind of get. But it's like, but where is your head? Like, you lived 20 years of your life in a state, like not even living, like you were a robot, and now you're free. I think that the psyche of someone like that is could be fascinating to explore. I mean, Star Wars is the wrong avenue for that completely. But where's that character's head at? Is what I want to know.
No, I like that. When you brought it up in the show, I was like, yeah, that's something I want to see more of, because that's my favorite part of the First Order, is that they're not conscripted folk like the Empire. It's not just some dude who grew up in Coruscant and is like, I want to be a stormtrooper because it's fun. Like, this kid was stolen and brainwashed and stuck in a room and probably shown some very disturbing things. They made him watch The View, like on a loop or something, and then he just
absolutely. But the Rosie O'Donnell View.
All of her View.
Is she still on The View? I haven't seen The View since. I never even saw it with Rosie O'Donnell on it. I don't even know who was on it when I saw it. But I remember
Whoopi was on
it. Alan Cummings, Nightcrawler from the X-Men 2 movies, and he played the Great Gazoo in Flintstones Viva Rock Vegas, one of the greatest sequels of all time. Hey, dum-dum. He was on Conan O'Brien promoting something, and he was like, I really like The View. And I was like, that's okay. I don't know why. That was from like 1997. But he said that, and I was like, okay. But he played the Great Gazoo, so he's one of the greatest actors of all time. The Great Gazoo and Nightcrawler. Hey, dum-dum.
Well, they probably showed Finn a lot of those same episodes that he was into then, and that's what made him so angry and so ferocious. And then, like you're saying, he broke free of that, but that's not, you don't break out of that overnight. That's some heavy duty stuff, and brains are very fragile in that way. And that is what I love about the First Order, is that they have this even more sinister method of recruitment. And I want to see more of that being an issue, and that's one of the reasons why I was not a fan of that Before the Awakening book, the little story with Finn when he's training with Trader, with Nines, and they're standing around, they're training, and they're having fun, because that was too clone troopery for me, with the nicknames and the camaraderie and the friendly rivalry and stuff. I was like, that was too much on the good side of things for what I think the First Order feels like. And so that story didn't really mesh with me with what I would imagine being a brainwashed stormtrooper would be like. But regardless, I want to see more of that as well. That's why, like, this movie needs to be either 2 movies or 4 hours. Pick one.
Well, you can't do parts 1 and 2 anymore. That's just a fact. That's why the Avengers had such an ending.
All I'm going to say is, Disney, think about this. 10 is a nice round number. That's all I'm going to say. 10 is a very nice, round, even number.
Kind of cool if it ended and they were like, by the way, there's one more. But I just can't see that happening. I'm sorry. All right, let's wrap this up. We've been talking for 45 minutes.
Ay, caramba. Well, yeah, that is what we. I was going to say no, but really I should use several air quotes when I say no. That is what we know about episode 9 so far. But again, like a super big thanks to Heidi for giving us that theory, because I do like that theory. Actually, the whole idea of training Rey, but for sinister means, it reminds me of Terry Silver from Karate Kid 3, turning for Frankie against, turning Daniel's son against Mr. Miyagi by training him in evil ways. That's what this reminded me of. So, I welcome any episode 9 theory at this point because I'm hungry for it. I just want to know what this movie's called at this point. That's what I hope we find out. I'm going to predict we find out shortly, like around Christmas time, around the time Solo would have come out if they'd stuck to the December thing.
I'm glad the Solo makes sense coming out now. With The Last Jedi being what it is, Solo was never going to make $1 billion. You throw it out. I think Solo is a fun summertime movie. And I think it makes complete sense to come out. My friend Daryl today was like, he's coming to see it with us. There's 13 of us going to see this on May 24th. Can't wait! And he was like,
I called dibs on sitting next to Daryl.
Ooh, you don't want that. But he said it should have come out today on May the 4th. Be with you. And I said, too close to Avengers, dude. I mean, this was the day Avengers was supposed to come out to begin with. Too close to Avengers. It's all Disney. They're not going to have that. It needs some breathing room. I think May made a lot of sense for this movie, but it's going to be weird in December now, not getting a Star Wars movie.
I know.
But yeah, we got a winner for our contest. Do you want to tell everybody who the winner is?
Oh, I don't know who the winner is. Who is the winner?
So we just decided on the podcast last week that there would be a winner and a prize and everything was speculative. So it's Patreon. The Patreon patrons were all put into a draw to win. We pulled out a name out of a hat. That was just me. I did that with Aaron earlier today. We pulled it out and here we go. It's the Han Solo Visual Dictionary.
I'm on it.
Andrew Fantasia is the winner. Wait a minute. You take money from us every month.
Oh.
It's Jacob Nixon. Jacob Nixon is the winner.
Hey!
Oh, the Han Solo Visual Dictionary. Hit us up on email and we will email it to you. It doesn't come out until the 25th, so you'll get that on pre-order. We'll send you the Canadian version, so you'll get it in both English and in French.
And I'm going to read it first and leave little notes in the margins for you, Jacob.
Actually, you wrote the book.
That is very correct.
Yeah. And next week, I think we're going to shoot the first episode of your documentary.
Yes, I actually have a good idea of how to start it off. So
I think we should call it Fantasiapedia.
Fantasiapedia.
It's like the worst. It doesn't work.
It's the Wikipedia of me.
Andrewpedia. All right, goodbye, everybody.
May the force be with you, scumbags, though. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a very sexy Revenge of the 5th. Well, a little bit of a sexy Revenge of the 5th.
Now I'm strangling you with the force.
Oh, you're strangling? Oh, God. Oh, God.
You don't know the power of the dogs. Special effects.
Are you warning me not to joke on my aspirations? Is that what's happening right now?
No, he does it like this. It's like, director. All right, guys. Thanks for watching.
Hey, scumbags. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on our video. As always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel Rebel Scum Podcast for all the latest videos.